Hello team and welcome to the studio. You're joined by myself and Ant Haynes. We're here to talk you through 21.1. We're going to be in the studio here every single week shortly after the announcement, shortly after Ant has thrown down and done the workout and I've had a chance to watch him. And we're going to bring you our thoughts on pacing, strategy, warm-up, and just some general reminders to help you get the best out of your performance with the open workout. We're going to dive straight into it, Ant. So we're not going to talk about our initial perceptions, but I think our initial perceptions were wall walks. That's not something we'd forecasted. But having said that, we actually just did a little estimate in the vlog as to what this workout would be. We weren't that far off, were we?
No, we were ascending ladder, correct, double under, correct, and some sort of inverted movement, correct, and a fairly long time cap in terms of the open workouts, which is 15 minutes is quite a long time. So although we were taking the piss a lot of it, it was actually pretty accurate. So if you do want to listen to us for next week, make sure you watch the end of the video.
So in this video, we're going to be talking about the RX workout and the scaled workout. Now, the first thing is, if you have not watched the official video release from CrossFit, go ahead and watch that now. I would also highly recommend you watch the two athletes go at this workout. If you're doing the foundation or the scaled workout, watch the relevant athletes do that workout as well. Lastly, really important, you read up on the movement standards. Don't just read, but also watch the videos that they provide. It's really important that you have as much clarity and knowledge on what the workout is before you even think about trying to create a strategy or a pacing plan. So first and foremost, let's talk about station setup. So we're about to watch Ant and Alex's video, and this is going to be playing throughout this entire video, so feel free to kind of watch that as that happens. But myself and Ant are kind of working our way through an agenda, referencing the video every now and then. So firstly, with regards to station and setup, I mean, there's only two movements here. So what would you suggest, Ant, in terms of how we're setting up that station?
I mean, you can't really get more efficient than what the ladies did in the official announcement. So rope either to the side of you if you've got space in the gym, or like we got here, just in front of you so you can walk forward. Obviously, it goes without saying that you should always have your rope set up directly in front of you, especially the first time, so you can walk in, pick it up, and go. You can see Alex and I both lay it down just so we're not tossing it on the floor, and it's getting all messy there. In terms of the standards, obviously we've got a line that's 10 inches away from the wall to start, and then we have a line which is directly under your shoulders when you're lying on the floor. Your fingers are in contact with the line, your fingers come and your hands come back into contact with the line. It's a fairly simple standard, but you will see that we kind of, I wouldn't say we manipulate the standard, but we do some things later on which you can see in the later rounds when you get to the wall walk. Double unders are fairly, it's a fairly foregone conclusion we can get through them. But the wall walk obviously does prove to be a bit challenging later on. Alex just did 20 reps there versus 30. And it is worth noting that we are both having to wear masks, which is not ideal. But it is a law right now in Hong Kong to be wearing masks if you're inside a gym. So, we just kind of got on with it. So, yeah.
Okay, so the station setup, basically you guys have your rope set up in front of you. I think another alternative, if you had the space, was potentially to have it next to you, so you're transitioning laterally between your wall walks and your double unders. I mean, half of one, 6 to one, half dozen of the other. I don't think it makes too big a difference. You did talk about that, laying your rope down. Lay your rope down in a position where you can step in and get into your first repetition as comfortably as possible. You'll see that you and Al both lay your ropes differently. This is just a matter of what you've been practicing and training. Something that you both said and I saw, have a towel handy. If you're especially in a warm environment, a warm climate, or a warm gym, this does get sweaty because you're spending a lot of time in that wall walk station. When you start to sweat, it starts to make that station a little bit slippery, and especially with most people, the tape that we're using, the duct tape, it does also basically become a really slippery surface. So make sure you've got a towel handy. If you have a judge there who can help kind of mop up that station to stop you slipping as you're moving to both ends of the wall walk standard, that's going to be really beneficial. It's actually why, strangely, both Ant and Alex wore a t-shirt in this workout. I think the concept there was to not allow the sweat to get to their station too quickly.
First time for everything.
I think things like sweatbands might also be a good decision to stop kind of sweat dripping down your wrist and into your hands, but that's something for you guys to play with. Let's talk about pacing and strategy. First and foremost, I can't say there's probably anyone in the world who has done this rep scheme with these two movements. I don't think we've ever, I mean, wall walks are kind of one of the foundation movements you do in the sport of CrossFit. It's often looked at as a scale to most kind of handstand walking or handstand push-up progressions. And it's kind of one of those movements that kind of once you've done it, or once you progress to the handstand walk or the handstand push-up, it's not really a movement you tend to really touch after that.
Unless you're doing a handstand hold to get up to the wall.
Unless you're doing a handstand hold. So I think, as always, the beauty of this is that this is now going to be another movement that affiliates and coaches are going to have to program into their athletes' programs in the future. I personally think that's a good thing. The more variance in the sport, the better. But in terms of creating a strategy, we often talk about referencing past performances. It's going to be really hard for you to reference any past performances. However, I'm sure a lot of us have done a skipping push-up or a skipping handstand push-up combination in the past, which will give you some feel of an idea as to how this is going to feel, which is going to be, typically you're going to probably agree with that, a very shoulder-intensive, muscle endurance based workout.
Yeah, I actually found, I think both Alan and I both found that during this, it wasn't actually our shoulders, it was more actually the tricep. So actually just keeping the arm locked. I think that's something else that we'll speak about, I guess, more down the line. But you have a hand and weight shift style, which I think Alex and I both use a bit more on the way up the wall, and then we have more of a controlled pressing style on the way down, so less of a weight shift on the way down. So you can see we kind of wiggle our way up, and on the way down it's much quicker, 1 or 2 steps down, which obviously requires a bit more of a press.
Something I will say here is that I think your techniques are slightly different. You kind of walk deliberately from one hand to the other while your body's rotating. Al kind of has more of a slide.
Yeah.
I do also think, with the triceps being a potential limiting factor here, for someone who has really good lockout or the ability to stack joints, which is not myself, means that if you can stack your joints, you're going to be working a lot less harder through the triceps.
Yeah.
If you're someone who has kind of a constant slight arm bend, perhaps because you're lacking range of motion, that is going to probably take its toll on the triceps a little bit more in this workout. So anyway, as much as you can, try stack those arms and try to kind of generate speed with the straight strength through the movement with the straight arm as much as possible.
Yep.
Okay, so in terms of movement selection, wall walks are very much, an anterior shoulder tricep based exercise. Double unders, depending on your skill level, are going to be kind of shoulders, calves, quads, those jumping muscles. The combination of the two, kind of a lot of blood being redirected through the body as you go upside down every time. Then you're having to send blood back to the legs. Aerobically, I think it will really depends if the extent to how much this is an aerobic workout or how much you're breathing to this workout. What I think really is dictated by double under proficiency.
Mm-hmm.
So for those who perhaps are less proficient with double unders, jumping really high with each repetition, for example, or tripping lots, or just having to work really hard to get a repetition, this is going to feel very, very different probably to how it felt for Ant and Alex, who are kind of very proficient with that double under.
Well, I think this is the first time, so we just broke in the round of 90. I actually didn't want to break in the round of 90, if I'm honest with you.
When you say break, you're talking about the wall walk, right?
No, we're talking about the double under.
Okay.
So we actually both broke. I know Al went 60, then 30 for the 90, and I went 70, then 90. I would have preferred to go unbroken on that, but I was having a bit of issues with my calf. But needless to say, I think, like you said, if you're proficient with a double under, it doesn't actually carry over massively into the wall walk, just because there's natural resting positions on the wall walk as well. When you're on the floor, you'll see a lot of the time, once I complete the rep here, I basically push straight up, stick my ass back, and there's nothing in the rule book to say this is illegal because my fingers are still on the line. Now my feet are on the wall, now my hands go back. Now, it obviously doesn't look like Carrie Pierce and Cristiano were doing it. They were doing it definitely looking a lot better than Alex and I were right here. But, it works, and it's essentially a resting position. I don't find lying on the floor with my hands on the floor necessarily a resting position, because I feel like there's still blood going to my upper back. I feel like my hands are still working on the floor. So at the end of this workout, my forearms are quite pumped, even from just doing wall walks. And like you said, you get slippery on the floor. So when it's getting slippery, you're grabbing the floor a little bit harder. If you're not proficient with double unders, that's going to affect you as well.
What I would say is good about this strategy as well that you guys are doing, this is kind of something you just kind of fell into. And I know Al said he kind of saw you do it. He started to emulate that. Is that, as soon as you've met the standard on the way down, you're pushing yourself back into a kneeling position, but your hands aren't moving.
Yeah.
What we saw Cristiano do is when she got to the floor, sometimes release the hands, to try and release some of the tension from her shoulders. And then when she placed the hands back down, she was missing the line.
Yeah.
So what this does, it ensures that when you finish the rep, when you start the rep, your hands haven't moved. And can't really see it from this video, but I can see Ant's fingertips are just on the line.
Yeah.
And then what I would argue is that, the more your hands are just on the line, the more efficient you're being.
Yeah.
If your hands are going way over that line, you're actually going further than you need to. But of course, like in the heat of a moment when you're fatigued and you're tired, you don't really want to think about that kind of stuff. So if you can have a strategy at the start where you're kind of just placing your hand, and the hand now doesn't move until your legs start walking up the wall, I think that's a really good strategy to ensure you're not working harder than you need to.
Yeah. As you mentioned in the beginning, those lines were also getting massively slippery as well. So like just every time the palm of my hand got to the line that was on the wall, which had so much sweat on it at this point already, I just sacked off wearing the t-shirt, so just tossed that away. It was just getting in my face, and the mask was enough as it was. So the lines are definitely slippery, so just be careful of that. Wipe it down. If you can get the judge to wipe it, for example, when you're on the double unders, that definitely is going to help you. But you can just see the markings on the floor already where Al and I have been the whole time.
Yeah. Okay, something else we haven't really talked about, but of course, one of the standards in the wall walk is that your chest, thighs and feet must be on the floor at the start and the finish of each repetition.
Yep.
Obviously, it makes sense. Do not be lowering yourself in a strict push-up and pressing yourself back up in a strict push-up. Try to snake your way down as much as possible. So we're talking about snake is, the knees are going first, hips are going next, and then the chest is going last. That's essentially putting as less load or as little load to the arms, shoulders, and triceps as possible. Yeah. And then basically reversing that or doing what you guys are doing is basically pushing backwards into kind of like a downward dog position.
Yeah.
Anything else to say on the wall walk, Ant?
No, not really. I mean, for those that have done it before, obviously you don't want to be spending, like you said, much time in the more stacked position when you're upside down. There's way more weight coming through the arms.
Get back down.
Exactly, yeah. One thing I definitely did look at the beginning, I watched Al and I watched how quick he was on the way back up when we were warming up. I was taking about 6 steps per wall walk. He was taking 4. So just trying to understand how to be a bit more efficient. Like you said, the more shifting there is through the shoulders, probably the harder you're going to start to work. So I actually really liked Al's sliding technique that he had. Yeah. At this point here, my calf I was just hanging on for dear life on my right calf. You can see my right toe is barely touching the floor there. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And just, people say you're not going to have to go hard at the open because it's only the top 10%. I totally disagree with that. I think you need to still go hard. You need to put a lot into each effort that you do. Hopefully I don't have to repeat this because I don't think my calves will recover in time. And fingers crossed Dave Casher doesn't put a box jump in for the next workout. But it is what it is.
On behalf of both of us, thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
What I will say as well, this workout being relatively low skill, this could potentially blow the leaderboard right open in week 1. So going back to what you said, and even good athletes, who are normally perhaps a top 1% athlete, who are thinking this year, I only need to be top 10% to move to that next stage. There could be anyone. You could just have someone who's an ex-gymnast or done wall walks in their training and learnt the double-under skill and can put in a competitive score in this workout. Yeah. So you're right, totally right. Put in as much effort as you can into this attempt, guys.
One thing I want to point out, so Carrie Pierce at this point, so don't forget she finished the workout about 13, 14 minutes. So we're really not far off her pace at this point. But it just shows how far she got through the round of 21 wall walks. She was about 3 minutes, and she absolutely destroyed it. And you're going to watch us flopping about like fish here on the floor. It was hugely impressive to watch her rattle through that, and then obviously hit the 210 double unders unbroken as well.
Something that I know you and Izzy did was, and I know Lottie and Al were doing as well, was communication with your judge. To have them let you know when you were reaching a line. Yeah. I think as well, with the classic, when we're upside down, we're 50% dumber. And especially in a workout like this, you just want to have those cues from a judge to let you know exactly when you've met a standard. That's if you are going to rely on that strategy, though, it's really important you and your judge have had that conversation, you've practiced those repetitions together. What you don't want as an athlete is to be meeting the standard and your judge still hasn't called that you've made it, and that's just time wasted. So if you are going to do that and you have a judge that you trust and that you know is going to be able to accurately help you through this workout, that's definitely something worth exploring. Just helps you as an athlete not have to think about it so much. I think that's pretty much it. And on the wall walk, something we've just we've said already Strategy is going to really depend on kind of where your limiter is. If you're not efficient with double unders, you're going to have to break those up early from the start.
Yeah.
And just making sure we're never arriving at a bottleneck. Remember, that's what we want to talk about strategy all the time. We never want to get forced to rest. Forced to rest meaning that we just cannot do another rep because we're too fatigued and too exhausted.
Yeah.
So that, both these movements have the potential for that to happen. So if you know shoulder endurance isn't something that's a strong point of yours, or you've done wall walks and you know that there's something that gets really tough, and I already know that, making sure you're not going too hot out the gates.
Yeah.
Even the two ladies, they went super fast in the 1, 3, 6, and I think in the 9s, and then you just see a really big drop off come later on. Now, the same rule applies whenever you see an ascending rep scheme in anything, especially with two movements that are so locally biased towards muscle endurance, is that as the reps get bigger, it gets more challenging.
Yeah.
Right? That goes without saying. Doesn't matter what the rep is or what the movement is. But what I will say is that it doesn't typically serve you to move fast at the beginning with the thought that we need to have more time when the reps get bigger. All that's going to happen is that as reps get bigger, you're going to be more fatigued. You're going to arrive there in a more fatigued state, and you're not going to really have a chance to recover because you're just going back and forth between the two movements.
And you can see now in the wall walk, Alan and I are both taking a lot more steps on the way back, and they're smaller steps. And on the way down, it's just like get our hands as quick as we can to that front line. So, you see even Alan's shuffling for 6 there. I think I took 6 in the last one as well.
What I'm starting to see as well now that you guys are going to be more tired, the moment your hands are reaching that line on the way back, you're coming straight back out again.
Yeah.
Whereas in the first few rounds, you were kind of waiting with a little bit of a pause and then coming back out again. Is that something, if you did it again, Ant, you would suggest, like, as soon as you get your hands there, come back out again?
Yeah, I guess it's the same as like the handstand push-up that we've seen in the past with the line. A lot of the time it's actually quite hard to see, and trying to look up, I guess, when you're upside down is not really a helpful position to be in. So like you said before, having a communication, the judge is saying yes as soon as your hands touch, and then as soon as your hands get back down to the line, you can always see that the first line at the beginning. So, as soon as your fingertips touch that, then you're good. But as soon as the palms touch that back line, communication to judge, definitely get out of that position because that's your most loaded position there is.
I'm curious to hear, was there any fatigue through the trunk in the midline?
No, not really actually. At the beginning, actually, I was having to shout to Izzy here to wipe my station down because I was really slipping. But no, not too much fatigue. You can see I'm actually quite relaxed there. I'm pushing the hips towards the wall, which actually is not a rule again.
Yeah.
So it's actually not a problem to do that. Alex was definitely a bit more stacked than I was. But again, that's probably his actual overhead movement probably a bit cleaner than I was. So I'd kind of run to the rope here, and again, didn't actually get one there. But if I had turned the other way around, that's an extra rep. And I'm hoping that in the stage 1 of the open that doesn't kill me, but in stage 2 where every rep really does count, and you're in a much smaller pool of people, that will be probably something that would potentially come back and bite me in the ass as well.
Yeah. Okay, great. Now in terms of the warm-up, guys, what we're going to do, we're going to copy and paste the suggested warm-up plan. We're going to put it in the notes section or the comment section of this video. So make sure you have a read of that. Ask us any questions. But of course, just remember that warm-ups are always individualized. So if you have a warm-up plan that you typically use for a very similar workout, stick with what feels most comfortable. Don't suddenly change everything just because we've given it to you. Last thing, just some reminders. We're probably going to say these things all the time when it comes to your open performances. Number 1, communicate with your judge before the workout. Just like today, your judge can really be a really efficient tool for you to do well in a workout if you set up your expectations and if you work on the communication and if you just allow that judge to kind of have a look at how you move so they know exactly what to expect. Remember number 2, set up your camera. Do this ahead of time before you're starting your warm-up, preferably so you don't have the added stress of trying to faff around with all that. Put it on airplane mode. Make sure you've got adequate memory and then hit record. And anything else on this?
If you are planning on redoing, hopefully you don't have to redo it again. But if you are planning on redoing it, obviously give yourself enough space. I don't think it's going to be your shoulders that are tight. It's going to be your calves that are probably blown out, especially if you're getting through anywhere 300 plus. So just be aware of that. But otherwise, no, it's play with the standard before, because obviously no one's really done it with this sort of standard. So like the handstand walking one and the handstand push-up one, people might find it a bit strange to start. Dial it in, make sure you're fully aware of what's happening. As Ed said, talk to your judge, and you should be good to go. It's I'll admit, I thought it was a bit of a silly workout to start, but they're always a bit of fun when the intensity gets up there and people are shouting at you. So yeah, I did have a a good start to the 2021 season.
Nice, well done. Yeah, just last one. I think just to add on top of that in terms of the redo, it really depends on how much double under work you're actually doing in your training. If you're someone who does double unders a lot, you may have a much better chance at redoing this workout because you're just used to that volume. If you're someone who doesn't do all that many or don't do that much overhead work, then potentially this is kind of a one and done workout for you. Yeah. And thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it, and great job in your attempt. To everyone else doing this workout around the world, best of luck to you. Remember, to our process programming community, make sure you upload your scores to WhatUp. We want to track your performances over this open. Make sure you are adding your scores and adding the hashtag process programming hashtag to your CrossFit Open leaderboard, so we can kind of celebrate this in our update show next week together. Good luck, everyone.
See ya.